Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Dan Hushon with DXC Technology. We're here for another DXC Tech Talk. In 2018, I really established with my peers a set of trends that we thought were going to be incredibly important, and one of them was called the talent wars and unlocking the value of talent, and recognizing that probably the one thing that every leader who's trying to execute a digital program is recognizing is that their number one constraint on execution is talent. And so today I brought a couple of really interesting leaders with me, including Jerry Overton, and Mike Trusty, and Faisal Siddiqi, to talk about some of the things that we're doing to help to grow, organize, retain, obtain, use talent broadly. But specifically today, really going to be talking about that deep technology talent. I've been fairly focused on trying to create a culture in which employees learn everywhere and anywhere, where they are incented to manage their own careers through their own continuous development, so that they can get to the point want to be, because I do believe that we're at one of these places in our in our world in which I think in the mainframe days you could probably the mainframe and retired with the mainframe in terms of a core technology basis. I think we're now at a cycle time on technology and a breadth and specificity of technology that it's becoming really, really difficult for our employees to understand what steps can they make, both what I'll call vertically and horizontally in their planning process. And I don't want to call them pathways, because I think that learning paths are getting aged. But this is a recognition that my learning journey, right, is going to can be organized in a way that's both very fulfilling in the near term and very fulfilling in the long term with respect to advancement, capability, and excitement. So I brought this great team together to talk to you a little bit, and we are going to do this in the format that we typically do. So we have this this hangout, which will be recorded into a YouTube video, and then we move on after that to crowdchat.net/DXC Tech Talk. Now that is a forum that's turned on right now, and so we're going to start actually taking questions right from the very beginning in the crowd chat environment and dealing with them online. And then what we'll do is add detail to them after we're done with this face-to-face journey offline, to really put some detail and plans and insights out from the broad set of participants in this. I do want to remind everyone, though, is that both this hangout, but also the crowd chat, is a public forum. It's engaged across 3 different social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But as such, we need to be a little bit careful about what we say to make sure that we live up to our non-disclosure agreements. That said, I want everyone to have a very vibrant conversation. There's a lot that we can talk about in talent and skilling and certification and engaging the 30+% of skilled technologists who are not incorporated, and the rest of the elements. So in just a minute, I'm going to turn it over to this team, but I'm just going to wrap up with one more piece. So, DXC has recognized also that not all the smart people are going to work for us as employees. And so we've been very actively moving towards an environment called the Talent Cloud, which is an environment in which we can take tasks, simple tasks, and allow them a certain level of visibility, from internal to internal plus partner to internal plus partner to broad internet community, to allow people to bid to establish market price for skill against those projects. And what we believe that that's going to do is really unlock a lot of talent that was not as accessible before, a lot of expertise that might not want to work for DXC, but might want to work with DXC. And our environment that can allow us to take the work that our clients are entrusting us to do on their behalf, and really employ the best technologists in the industry to help to solve those problems or build those systems and services. So it's pretty exciting, and I wanted to make sure everyone, this in fact is a new open talent marketplace. kind of built on the best of what open source communities do with pull requests and GitHub and standards and the rest, but really now being designed around getting real business work done and unlocking some of those constraints on digital talent as our clients and our company look to execute forward in the marketplace. And so with that, I hope everyone kind of recognizes that talent's always a very passionate subject for a whole lot of people in the community. So I hope there are a lot of people that join us. But I'll also like to take any questions, concerns that people see out there. Because they'll execute in the marketplace with the efficiency that I think is possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Trusty a little bit for a little while to talk to us about DXC's own learning process and how are we attracting talent, growing talent, retaining talent, and also some of the learning paths. I actually think they're learning journeys that we want to enable as a core company. So Mike, take it for a little while.
All right, thank you, Dan. Thanks everybody. I'm Mike Trusty. I lead learning and development for DXC, and there's three things that I wanted to touch on quickly to get our conversation started today. One, just basically acknowledging the obvious that things are changing rapidly. We live in a very dynamic environment with digital transformation. Second, I want to talk a little bit about how people are keeping up in this rapidly changing environment. And then I want to close, and then I'll hand over to Jerry to talk in greater detail. But I want to close with how people are kind of using what I'll call open source learning. So going beyond the traditional learning environment, for us it would be DXC University, and using that as kind of a foundation or a launching pad to look into different areas and different arenas that can help you with your learning. So let's start off with rapidly changing environment. With the amount of innovation, with the amount of change that's going on in today's environment, if you're not learning, it's going to be very difficult for you to keep up with the pace of change. Dan mentioned earlier, in the past, your college degree was what you traded on. You got that degree, and you could say, many years ago, you could say, for 30, 35 years, I'm set. That became 20 became 10. And now it's really, some of the stuff that I've been reading says that what you learn in achieving that degree may last you 2 or 3 years, and then you're going to have to start building on those skills, building on those capabilities in order to keep up. And that kind of gets us to how are people learning, and the phrase that I would put in there is really embedding learning into the flow of work, embedding learning into the way you work, so that it's something that is continuous. So if we think about in the past, it was our college degrees that we traded on that got us the roles, that got us the jobs, that got us the promotions. Now it's all about skills, and you've got to continually build and develop new skills. And we'll talk a little bit more about some badging and some other things, but bringing those skills into the skill development, into how you work, how you go about your day-to-day job, whether it's micro-learning, which I'll talk about in a second, or macro-learning, really ensures that when you go to market, you've got a competitive set of skills that can get you those opportunities. Leading Edge Forum does some really great research, and they just within the past couple of weeks published a paper called Innovation Shifts to the Human Platform. Are you ready? They talk about a number of things in there, but one of the things that they talk about is the importance of continual learning, and even developing social networks. So using your social networking tools to build a network, to bring in new information, new data. What do you want to learn? What can you do to keep accurate? So micro-learning, macro-learning, couple of quick definitions. Micro-learning, I need to know something now, and that's learning you can do quickly, 5 minutes or less, to get that piece of information. Macro-learning is when you want to learn something new, and that's something that's a little bit more intense. That's something that's a little bit more, takes a little bit more effort, might take a little bit more time. But one of the things that we're learning is you can't, macro-learning is not necessarily going to a 3-day workshop, because you learn over time. So the ability to space things out over time. If you want to learn something new, you do it, you learn it, you practice it, learn something new, practice it again, learn something new, get feedback, practice it. That's part of where the concept of the dynamic talent cloud can really come into play. Gives you an environment where you can where you can practice, where you can get some of those experiences. So open source learning, how do we move, just to kind of wrap my piece up, how do we move beyond just the traditional learning management system and our traditional approaches to learning? If you go out, even within DXC University, we've got our core information, we've got alliance partner training, we've got different programs that are available to all employees that they can take advantage of there. But that's just a small piece. When you go out into into kind of beyond the firewall, looking at things like Katacoda, looking at things like Coursera. I took a quick look at Coursera this morning. The top program that's been the top for some time is on machine learning. The next one is on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, that type of thing. And then interestingly, the next one was learning how to learn. So you can kind of see this trend in the MOOCs that are out there in terms of the topics that a lot of people are gravitating towards. Let me close just talking about is one of the questions that I'm sure is out there is, how do you keep your skills current, and then how do you ensure that people know that you've got these skills and know that you've got these capabilities? Let me hand it over to Jerry Overton. Jerry's doing some really interesting work around open badges and developing some AI programs and using an open badge environment to develop the learning and also develop kind of the micro certification that goes along with that. So Jerry, with that, let me hand it over to you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike. I want to give some context or give you a specific example of some of these topics that we've been talking about, that Dan's been talking about, and Mike's been introducing. I want to give you that specifically in the area of machine learning and artificial intelligence. I'm going to share what we've been doing in the area of open badges. So I'm also, as we're doing this, I'm checking the questions that are submitted. I'm not going to go over the fine details of open badges here live. I'll wait for you to ask questions and I'll respond to them there. But we are starting an open badge academy in industrialized AI. And these are open credentials that allows the learner to, no matter where it is you get your experience, it allows you to demonstrate that you have valuable skills that can be used in the marketplace, and it also allows DXC to establish our brand, because I think that we can be a leader in artificial intelligence, but to do that, we are going to need both a talent pool and we're going to need a brand. What's cool about these open badges is that they are open, shareable credentials. You can put them out there, you can put them on your digital signature, and they are also, it's supported by Mozilla, where you can link to these digital badges and you can get metadata on what it is that you learned to get the badge, what is the time frame that the badge is valid. So it's an open credential that can be shared in LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. What is also very cool about the way that we're structuring this Open Badge Academy is that not only do we recognize that people can learn from anywhere, we also recognize that your path to learning is probably going to be different. So there might be some people who are interested in, say, AI leadership. There might be people who are interested specifically in AI engineering, some maybe in data science, and maybe there are those who are interested in mastering them all. For our Open Badge Academy that we're starting, we have pathways through that will take you through any of those paths. So I have an ask to the audience here. I'm asking that you help us create this program. We plan on launching it, but right now we are in the development phase. So out in Workplace, in the artificial intelligence group in Workplace, as we are developing the designs for these badges, I put them out for comment. And I'd like to hear comments from everyone on everything from, hey, I don't like the way this badge looks, to, hey, this is really how you should structure your steps to make sure that you demonstrate proficiency in this particular area. Now, I've already gotten quite a few really cool and very useful comments. I just want to keep that going. Also, I want to let you know that as you participate, as you add your comments, you are also becoming part of the virtual team. So keep in mind that, as we get your comments, we're going to add you to the list of people who we're going to go to for early acceptance of the badges, helping us develop programming, sit through some of the training material. Anyway, I'm really excited about this open badging program because it's a way for us to build credentials in this area, but it's also a way for us to build community, and it's an example of the kind of open learning that Mike, both you and Dan have been talking about.
Yeah, this is important. I mean, you know, one of the things we were just talking about before, Jerry, right, was the you know, how do we begin to fully endorse these badges, right? Because the badges should have as much value as currency to some extent, right? I mean, they're going to have both currency as an attribute, which is how current are your skills, but they also have innate value. So, you know, are there some things that you've begun to think about beyond the big, you know, the machine learning, which is, hey, can I actually watch what this person is doing, right? Or do they have, you know, high potential to continuous to learn, right? Are they actually using that potential, right, to actually learn and do good work? And are they in demand by certain teams? That's an interesting dimension. How do you begin to record for posterity, you know, some of those things?
Yeah, really interesting point. So the first thing is I'm going to post a little bit more information about open badges in that program in the crowd chat. But to answer your questions, it's a community approach. So we have, in order to earn the badge, think of like a Boy Scout badge. In order to earn the badge, you have to go through useful, meaningful projects. You have to show that you can apply concepts in meaningful ways. Now we have a panel of experts who you submit your work to. This is a way for DXC to extend that community. It's not just DXC, but it's our partners. We've also been talking to universities about sitting on the board as well. After that's done, we have the community. So when you've earned, say, a master in industrialized AI, you become part of that community. It's open knowledge that you have earned that badge. So the third thing that we do is we engage the entire community in ongoing dialogue and learning. How did it go with the badge? What do you want to see next? And, you know, as we are updating the badge and the badge learning path, the entire community automatically gets an update. And then that's available not just for the people who earn the badge, but for the people who want to look in and see, okay, what's going on with this community? Who are the leaders? Who's done what?
That's very interesting, you know, questions that really come down to, you know, how is DXC's leadership actually, you know, thinking about using these badges aggressively? And I just want to kind of weigh in. You know, I think probably one of the biggest reasons why someone leaves a company, why I've seen it lately, right, is when someone learns a new technology, recognizes its differential value, and then recognizes that they're not going to get a chance to practice it or to, let's just say, further advance their knowledge in this space through an appropriate community of people. So just wanted to kind of lean in. I mean, I think the badges need to be designed to be portable, and I think you've pointed that out, Jerry. I think it needs to be just as portable as a medical record, because it actually really is, hopefully, your new resume, which credentials into projects. But I think the other thing that we need to do is begin to make sure that we're actually tracking the downstream portion of the badges. Which, you know, are we allowing our people to practice right, the things that they've learned and get and continue to advance the badges? So I think kind of badges with stars or badges with dollar signs on them, right? So where people have actually been able to kind of progress the badge over time as well, right? So breadth and depth become important.
Yeah, and this is about building a talent pool. So, you know, if I have my way, this is going to be the place that we go to, you know, find the talent that we need to execute on projects. So, you know, as you're earning the badge, this becomes this becomes one of the #1 ways to get opportunities in this area.
Yep, very cool. So, you know, we are doing more in public forums with open source. I think open source is certainly Petri dish may be a wrong analog, but, you know, I do believe that our people need to understand what it means to work on distributed teams in order to unlock the potential of their talent, right? I think people are very rapidly going to recognize that they may be in places in which they can't employ the new skill in which they have a passion to advance their badge. Or to continue to advance their career. And I think that, open source for me has always proven to be this very open world marketplace where you can practice those skills, get recognized for those skills, and advance the state of the art and do interesting things. So I'm going to actually ask Faisal Siddiqi, who is our leader for our open source project, and also a key leader in blockchain, which I think is, another aspect of the non-repeat of our contributions, our copyrights, and these badges, to talk a little bit about our open source project and how aggressively we need to be driving this at DXC to be viewed as an industry leader in helping our clients also use the best of open source as well as contribute to open source to move the broad industry forward. So, Faisal?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's a great lead. I love this conversation because we're talking about learning. And the reality is that as a part of what we do every day, day to day, I probably specialize based on assignments that I have. We think of those as our day job. And if I'm not careful, I can get really narrowly focused on whatever it is that I'm doing in my day job. So Dan mentioned the possibility that, hey, I acquire an exciting new skill. And unless I can apply it, I'm not really fully utilized in those new skills. On the other hand, open source groups and projects naturally form this basis of meritocracies, where if I acquire a skill or if I can contribute in a meaningful way, I get harnessed. I can use that skill. So the really nice thing about open source projects in general is that they offer an easy way to broaden your skills and then get rewarded for it. And a really nice opportunity that we have is to apply those very same philosophies internally within the enterprise. And that's really the basis of what we think of as inner source. And we have these substantial successes that we can point to today for the past few years that we've been doing in the insurance group, with digital insurance and omnichannel, within healthcare. And today we probably have thousands of inner source projects, which maybe everybody's not really aware of. Our API design guidelines, for example, is something that grew out of an inner source mechanism. And today we find that it has substantial value across the enterprise. People who make use of these kinds of API design guidelines can broaden their horizons and make contributions and eventually open source them. Mm-hmm. So, and I kind of get the question about how this fits into learning. A big part of it is that I can step away from what I've been doing day to day and still have it make contributions to my day job. I can expand beyond what I do. And this does not have to be in conflict with what I do day to day. That's the beauty of it. And we have some empirical evidence of this. So really, I realize that we may be running short of time, but there's a substantial opportunity for contributions and to get involved. We have the open source program that we put together over the past 3 or 4 years has established the means for bringing ourselves up to speed with what the open source guidelines are. There is a training for getting started with open source to make appropriate contributions. What's the safe, legal, and appropriate way to harness open source and contribute to open source? This really opens the door to what I really love doing, which is making use of emerging technologies. And Dan mentioned a few different things. Blockchain tech obviously comes up, but just microservices, AI and natural language processing, the use of interactive bots. These are things that we are doing today. And not everybody may have an opportunity to use this in what their day-to-day work involves, but you'd be surprised that all the places where it may apply.
I think everybody can. I mean, when you begin to think about, and I love this, Faisal, right? I mean, but if you think about it, right, if you're using Office 365, which 90+% of the enterprises are using today, right, you have Microsoft Flow available to you for your own personal bot, right? If you've got an Alexa device in your house, right, then you have the ability to set up IFTTT, right, within that target environment. So I think the excuse of not everybody can do this is a bit of that, just that, an excuse, right? There are a tremendous number of environments in which we can improve our own personal productivity, right, through the use of bots and technologies and learn them on the way. And the same could be said of AI and machine learning, right? I mean, with free tensors available from Google, right? There are so every one of the cloud providers right now is trying to attract developers, right? And so this should be the developers' heyday, right? Where you can literally go and play the cloud providers off one another in order to give you the resources that you need to continue to learn and develop and improve your skills and create alongside of that, right, your own personal portfolio, right, of learning, and then declare that with badges. So I think these are fantastic, and we've tried to be very, very explicit from a DXC perspective, right? What are our baseline technologies? What should every developer understand, right? GitHub is one of those things, right? If you don't know how to work with open code and you haven't yet participated in a community, even to write technical documentations, right, then I think that you're selling yourself short, because these are, and you could say GitHub or Bitbucket, and I don't. That piece doesn't matter, right? The point is, what does it mean to participate in a community of developers, right, in order to advance a technology area or a business solution in some way? And by bringing some of these new, joining some of these new projects, right, you pick up new computing languages and you begin to understand the differences in computing languages. What does that do? That helps you make better decisions going forward when you create your own business, or you get the opportunity to define the basis of a new application development. But as we move into open source, we need to recognize that with the huge preponderance of open source in the enterprise today, companies are beginning to ask us for digital playbooks. We see an increased interest in the industry in a much more common digital foundation underpinning these projects. We see platforms of service beginning to come up, replacing what used to be traditional IT activities, and we see DevOps, right, replacing the old wall that used to be between the developers and operations. So continuous integration pathways. There is so much that is a core basis for this digital execution that I'd like to make sure that everybody recognizes that there is some table stakes, which is absolutely safe no matter where you go in the industry to go and learn. And then there are a set of things which you do with those table stake technologies to create differentiation and business value. And I think that some of these can be done on a personal basis, as Lewis Richards and his Digital Human program have begun to show us, right? I think some of these things are coming through the enterprise contributions to open source, because it's really not about trying to get someone else to pay for the maintenance of the stuff that you've built. It's really about trying to enable the continuous extension of that work through a broader community of developers. And then there is the personal aspect to this, which is that every employee needs to recognize that they're kind of their own agent. That large companies, right, have an obligation, right, to continue to produce interesting work, to pay you a fair wage for that work that you do, and to continue to give you an opportunity to move forward in your career. But how fast you move in that path. And how your own personal competency with respect to how much better code you write than others, or how much better breadth of skill basis you have to be able to complete projects on your own instead of requiring additional experts. Those are things that we can take on our own shoulders. Really fun, and I love this audience, and I can't wait to continue on crowd chat in just a minute. But I'd like to kind of wrap up and thank our speakers today, and give them a chance for kind of one last catchphrase each. So I'm just going to start with Mike. Mike, what one takeaway do you have to give to the team out in the audience?
So I've been spending a lot of time here in the States on college campuses with recruiting and other activities. And let me leave you with a quote, not from me, but with a junior at George Mason University. Two things that he does. One, he blocks out 10 to 12 every night to learn something new, learn new programming language, do things like that. And when he gets stuck, he says there's the 2 Gs, Google and gumption. That's how he gets through the challenges. So I'll leave you all with that.
That's awesome. I love the intellectual calisthenics, right? That is, you guys no time, and I'm not a college student anymore, so I do it from 5 to 6 in the morning. But that's a different statement. So that's awesome, Jerry.
My leave is a call to action. So go out into Workplace in the artificial intelligence group. There's tons of material posted. You have a chance to get in on the ground floor and make this really our program, the Open Badges Academy. So I'd love to hear what people think and love to hear your feedback.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jerry, for doing that. I think these badges are going to become incredibly important because I do think the days of a resume for developers are almost over, right? I mean, so thank you. Faisal.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I want to make a pitch for the fact that innovation doesn't exist in a vacuum or in the dark. We want to innovate out in the open. And open source offers the means to do that. I'm going to make a personal appeal to post your GitHub profile, internal and external, in the appropriate places. And I think this is goes hand in hand with the idea of badges, because I think it's self-rewarding and self-fulfilling.
That's great. Awesome. Well, with those notes, I'm going to invite everyone to join these speakers and a broad audience that currently is, 540 online people to continue this discussion for as long as it takes us. And thanks everyone for your time today. And I hope you guys had a key takeaway, which is I think learning and development is continuous. We need to own our own personal learning journeys. And there are a huge number of both internal and external resources available to you. And those begin to unlock the opportunity for the new kind of work that we all want to be doing going forward as a technical community. So thank you very much for joining me today and these great speakers. Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
With that, Heather, let's see you on the other side.